Hello, Fieldswell fam. Today I have Scott Parker with me to talk about entrepreneurship and living an alcohol-free life. Scott has been sober for almost 15 years and has since opened over 25 businesses. He has also launched Locked Back In, a sober coaching program that he's going to tell us all about. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Great to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. It's a little bit chilly out here in the Mid-Atlantic, DC metro area. It was like 25 degrees this morning, but I'm feeling good.
Chilly. Well, one thing I know for sure is that you're doing better than anyone who has a hangover today.
That's for sure. Haven't had a hangover in about 15 years.
So, to paint a vivid picture for us, let's go back to March 10th, 2010. What was the turning point that made you realize it was time to quit drinking alcohol?
Yeah, on March 10th, 2010, that was my last day. It was actually a wine bus tour for a friend's girlfriend's birthday. And at the end of that tour, I ended up getting in a fight outside of a restaurant. And I woke up at 3 in the morning in my bedroom, just covered in blood, scraped up, sad, miserable. It really was the end of the road for me. The fight was just sort of the last straw. And I was just more depressed, more sad than I had ever been when I woke up at 3 a.m. all cut up and messed up. And that was the sort of my rock bottom moment. And that
Mm.
was it.
Isn't it interesting how often in life, like something could be going on for so long and we may realize it's a problem, but we don't do anything about it until we really hit rock bottom?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with drinking, a lot of people will say that you have to hit that rock bottom before you can bounce back. So that's definitely what it took for me.
For our listeners, though, with this story, we're going to let you know you don't have to wait till you hit rock bottom. You can make a change now.
For sure. Yeah, I wouldn't wait that long, and a lot of people are quitting now that are not getting to rock bottom, sort of in the new era. That's kind of the new thing to
Mm.
do is like, I'm just a little unhappy with drinking. I'm not happy with how it makes me feel, so I'm going to let it go. Whereas it used to be, I'm going to have that total rock bottom moment, and then I'm going to quit.
Mhm. Was there something that you identified that was maybe causing you to want to numb and drink excessively?
I don't know that I ever knew what it was, other than I would say just sort of general insecurities. I think that in my teens, I didn't know who I was or who I wanted to be. I don't think I felt confident enough. And then when I started drinking at 16 or 17, I got sort of that rush of confidence of this is who I am. I'm the party guy. This is how I'm going to make my way and how I'm going to be known. And it sort of gave me it sort of, I would almost say, helped me grow up. It helped me get through adolescence and not be this awkward guy sort of going through puberty, but all of a sudden I'm this guy who can be confident out in public and be funny and be outgoing, and sort of that sort of thing. So it wasn't like there was any specific childhood trauma. I'm an open book. I'd be happy to talk about it, but I think it was really just sort of boyish insecurity, and that kind of thing that really it gave me that confidence that really made me cling to alcohol from there.
This fun party boy, guy who likes to drink. You're a good time to be around. I can see that play a role in many individuals' lives as they're in high school, in college. It's kind of like the norm in the US.
For sure, for sure. I mean, I think that's why drinking catches on so much because it's at that time period in our life that we start drinking where everyone's kind of, I know the drinking age is 21, but let's be real, most people are starting at 16, 17, 18, 19, somewhere in there, and everyone's kind of at that place where they're trying to find themselves, and now all of a sudden this is how they can have fun. Partying becomes this amazing thing, and so it's so easy to fall right into it at that time in our lives.
hmm And it's interesting because I believe we all have these insecurities at that age. We don't know fully who we are yet. Our identity isn't fixed, and we're like trying to fit in, and we think that it's we need help to fit in, or we need something that's going to make us more comfortable. And as I age, I realize, and what I've done some research on is that authenticity is the highest vibrational frequency. So if we're younger, like the biggest advice I'd give to anyone who's struggling to fit in or feeling like they need alcohol as a crutch, it's like the highest vibe you can vibrate at is by being who you are,
Yep.
all of you, and diving full force into that.
Yeah, 100%. I think at that age, we're not really ready to do that or be that. We might not know who we are then, And so it's not going to be easy for us to say, well, I don't know who I am first off, and I'm sure as hell scared of being myself around people. I think
Mm.
there'd probably be a lot less problem drinkers if everybody started drinking at age 30 instead of age 18,
Yes.
because people have kind of found their place in the world at that point, or kind of know who they are.
Mhm.
But it's I think that's why it's really just a dangerous thing that we start drinking in those teenage years, when it's right when we're trying to figure out who we are as an adult.
So if you could go back, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I mean, really, I guess just to never start. I mean, I often
Mhm.
wonder what my life would be like. Not that my life's, I'm not happy with where I am, or who I am, but if I had never drank. I spent 10 years from 17 to 27 truly drinking almost every day for those 10 years. You know, Probably if I had to count, I'd say 97 or 98% of those days from 17 to 27, I was drinking, and drinking to the point of being drunk. I think what I would just say is never, don't start. It's
Mm.
not worth it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you'll end up quitting anyway. So why spend 10 years doing it?
So for that decade, you were drinking heavily pretty much every day.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
Wow.
in college, I'm sorry, in high school, I really took to it. And then in college, when, my parents weren't around and I could do what I wanted, then
Mhm.
it definitely became something that was an everyday thing. And I think even as a 18-year-old person, 19-year-old person, I already knew that I had an alcohol problem, that I liked it way too much. I was drinking way more than sort of the other people in college.
Mhm.
If people back then, freshman year, sophomore year, were drinking 3, 4, 5 nights a week, I was doing 7. I think, I already knew, like, this is a little bit different. I'm drinking on Mondays and Tuesdays, and there's not a lot of other people that are, type thing. So yeah, it was all the time. Every night. Right away in the beginning of my drinking career, and then towards the end, it became a lot of days too. Drinking early in the
Mhm.
morning, drinking all day, all that kind of stuff.
Were you still functional?
For sure, for sure. And I think that was maybe what made it harder to quit. And I've talked to other drinkers that does make it harder to quit. It's like it might be easier if you can't be functional, because you'll hit that rock bottom faster, and then you'll have more of a reason to quit. But I was definitely functional. I was still working. I remember when I quit at 27, and all through my 20s, I was still working 2 jobs at the time. So I had a day job, I had a night job. So I was certainly functional, and functional to the point of, my night job was waiting tables and being a server. And I remember many nights where I worked the entire shift, and the next day I woke up and I didn't remember a single moment of that shift. Who my guests were in the restaurant, what they had, what they
Mhm.
ordered, things that happened in the night. So very functional at a level of being extremely
Mhm.
intoxicated to the point of blacked out.
Wow. Did any close friends or relatives ever confront you about it?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think my family confronted me too much about it, just because drinking is so accepted in my family. Pretty much everyone drinks, and some people drink a lot. So I think they kind of always thought it was something that I would grow out of. There are definitely, I think when people really talked to me more about it was once I did quit. I think there was, a lot of people saying, like, we're thankful for this. We're happy to see this.
Yeah.
This is going to be great for you. And that really helped as well.
Mhm. So, talk to us about how sobriety has impacted your ability to gain clarity and build the life that you have now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's changed everything for me. I've been almost 15 years now. Back when I was really drinking hard, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a business owner, but I just couldn't figure it out. And then as soon as I got sober, I really could sort of, lock in and work on my goals, and get to the point where I could launch my first business. I got sober when I was almost 28 years old, and then right when I turned 30, so 2 years and a few months later, I launched my first business, which actually was a restaurant and bar. Interestingly enough, but I would have never been able to do any of the things I've done if I drank and launched all the companies I've launched, and all that kind of stuff over
Yeah.
the years, if I was still drinking.
Did you have that clear vision for yourself when you were drinking of all the things you wanted to do, and that's what helped you finally stop and go after it? Or did you really get clear and develop the vision once you stopped drinking?
No, yeah, it was definitely the former. I really knew badly that I didn't want to be a 9 to 5er my whole life. I didn't want to work for other people. I had a lot of ambitions around, opening my own restaurants and opening my own small businesses. And I just couldn't figure out how I was going to do it. I knew I wanted to do it so bad,
Mhm.
but I just couldn't figure out, getting it done and getting to that point. And so once I did get sober, then it really started to become clear for me about,
Yeah.
this is what I got to do next. This is what I should try. And it really started to take shape.
I'm a big believer on having a vision. I've heard
Oh,
this
yeah.
word. It's like if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so to get really clear on like what it is you want in life, I do a vision board. At the end of every year, I'm excited to do my vision board for 2025 in a couple of weeks
Yeah.
because you're programming your subconscious mind for what you want in life and for what's to come. And it will start to notice things around you that can help you get there because you've already programmed it for where you want to go. And so for you, that was helpful once you stopped drinking. You're like, here's where we're going. Let's go.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree with that. I think, I know manifesting is a sort of a big buzzy concept right now, but if you look at some of the people who are top performers in the world, they really believed in themselves and in their vision before anyone else did. And even in
Mhm.
visions that were very unrealistic to most people, or big grand visions that most people would think, this person can never make it at that level. And then they do.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you 100%. I think it's amazing what people can do when they really believe. And I think if you believe enough and you put in enough work, almost anything is achievable. And so I would definitely agree with that 100%.
So, what are some of the feeling states you were able to tap into when alcohol was no longer a part of your life?
Um, I think I really had to start to learn to process all emotions, because back then it was, if I'm really upset about something, I'm going to drink and I'll forget about it. If I'm really happy about something, I'm going to drink and be excited about it, and kind of all those things. Even just going through things that are normal for people, like breakups, or losing a family member who is much older, and probably expected to eventually pass away anyway. Those things really rocked me emotionally, to the point of I was almost wondering, like, what is this deep dark place that I'm in. And then having to process all of those things and go through really tough times without ever having that escape is really challenging. I tell people that it's not that I miss being drunk or those fun times, but not having that escape can really be
Mhm.
hard, when you really have to sit there with whatever emotion you're feeling and realize, I'm not going to be able to use alcohol to process this, or to sort of block this out.
Mhm.
It's really hard. So
Mhm.
definitely the sad times, the hard things I've gone through in life have been, maybe even more
Mhm.
challenging, because I'm sort of learning to process those for the first time as an adult,
Yeah.
without alcohol as a crutch.
Yeah. I mean, it goes from numbing yourself, right, to like feeling everything completely.
For sure. No, absolutely. And sleep. A lot of the numbing would be, okay, I'm upset about this, but if I start drinking at 7 p.m. and by 10 or 11 p.m. I'm severely intoxicated, it's gonna be really easy to get to sleep. Whereas now it's like, if you're processing something emotionally, you get to 10 or 11, get ready for bed, you're still dead sober. You might sit there and lay in bed and think about what it is.
It,
So it's just certain things like that that really made it hard in the beginning, for
Mhm,
sure.
mhm, and I'm sure you've developed certain practices that help you navigate that now, and after being sober for 15 years, I'm sure that's stabilized. With the sleep thing though, like, people have, say, like, 3 cocktails a night, and they're wondering why they can't get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Yes, alcohol may make you fall asleep more quickly, however, it doesn't enable you, or at least for me, to, like, stay asleep or have as good night's sleep as if I'm not drinking.
That's for sure. And I think what they say is that, I don't know the science behind it, but I have heard it's a lot about the sugar, sort of that sugar intake. You're
Mhm.
filling your body with sugar, and then it starts to withdraw from that sugar after 3 or 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And yeah, you hear that a lot with people who have drinking problems, that they get to sleep right away for the first 3 or 4 hours, but then they wake up and they can't sleep. They're tossing and turning. They might never get back to sleep.
Mhm.
So I would agree with that. It can help you get to sleep, but the type of sleep you're going to get throughout the night is certainly not guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, the dehydration as well.
For sure, yeah, absolutely. It's brutal for you, as far as dehydration.
So what were some of the other challenges you faced during the early days of sobriety?
I think learning, well, really waiting for my friends and people to learn how to accept me that way.
Mhm.
It was definitely a mixed bag of how people felt about it. One of the interesting things I always say is that what I found is the smartest, most well put together, most caring people are the ones that really supported it from the beginning. And then sort of my drinking buddies who really didn't have their act together and were still, living their life as boys, as I was, as in, in their 20s. They were the ones that really couldn't accept me, and that type of thing. And so, learning that some people were going to find their way out of my life as a result of getting
Mhm.
sober was hard. And then also, just being the sober one in certain situations. Like I said, my family all drink a fair amount. They still do to this day. And being the sober guy at events were really hard. Going to
Yeah.
those first couple weddings sober, going through the first couple funerals sober. Those were some of the things where it's like, man, this is a heavy emotional moment. Either 90% of the people at this wedding are pretty boozed up and having a blast, and I'm kind of just like the sober guy, or 90% of the people at this funeral are kind of having a couple drinks to push it away and move on from it, and I'm just kind of there going through it too. Events were very, very hard in the beginning, and I
Mhm.
when I work with people now who are giving up alcohol, we always guard against events. We always have a plan for going into events. How are you going to get through that birthday, that New Year's Eve, that wedding, that funeral, and make sure that you don't drink? It can be really hard to process the emotions and those
Mhm.
types of things.
Mhm. Has it gotten easier for you now?
For sure. I mean, it's to the point now. I'm lucky that I never think about it. I always tell people I don't ever have the urge. I don't ever think about I might drink or I might make a mistake. It's just something I don't do. The way I explain it to people is if you never smoked a cigarette, you were never a cigarette smoker, and someone offers you a cigarette, you're not even going to have a craving. You're not going to. There's no chance you're going to
Mhm.
do it. You're just going to say no because it's something that you don't do, and that's how it is for me for drinking now. It's I don't look at it as something I once had a problem with. It's just something I don't do.
Mhm.
Maybe I did do it 15 years ago, but now I don't anymore. So it's not a chance of am I going to drink? Is there a concern around that? It's just something that doesn't add up to me.
And when was that threshold of like crossing over, like, okay, now I feel really comfortable with this being my identity?
Yeah, I think it took a good 2 3 years, and then it happened. In the beginning, it was, I kind of felt like I'm more of the guy of, okay, I'm this guy that had a problem, and no, I'm not drinking because I'm quitting. It wasn't good for me. I don't know, using the phrase alcoholic or whatever the case may be. And then eventually it got to the point where I just was over it and kind of forgot all about it because just like anything, I think there's more discipline and more understanding with reps. It's like anything that you grow out of. If you were young and you used to have bad habits or do certain things that you don't do anymore, have hobbies that you gave up. That's what it was. It just became something eventually that I fully rationalized as I'm just a guy that doesn't drink.
Mhm.
Maybe I was a guy that once had a problem. Maybe I was a guy that once was worried about giving up alcohol. But at this stage, it's like almost 15 years. It's been so long. There's no chance in hell I'm going to drink. There's nothing that I could go through up, down, or all around that drinking would ever be how I solved it. But I
Mhm.
think it was definitely a good 2 or 3 years until I got to that
Mhm.
moment.
And what are some tips or strategies you have for individuals who either are newly sober or who want to experiment with sobriety and they have a big event coming up or are worried about entering social settings?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is you have to go into the night with various plans. One of the first things that I will often work through with people is one of the most simple things is what are you going to drink and what's it going to look like? And what I mean by that is what it's going to look like physically to people when they see it. So a lot of people I'll recommend is get a club soda with lime because a lot of people will see that and they're just assuming that it's a cocktail. They won't even ask you a question, right? So that can be really helpful. The second thing is you have to know what you're going to say. People get into trouble when they go into events and someone says, "Well, what you're not drinking," and they're like, they're trying to find the words. They don't know what they're going to say. People are either going to buy you a drink, offer you a shot, ask you if you're drinking, ask you why you're not drinking. You're going to get those questions. So you have to have your answer sort of preloaded to make it easy on yourself. And that's what a lot of people will do and do it and do really well. And it's almost always works because they just need to have that confidence and have that situation preloaded that someone says, hey, why aren't you drinking? What's the reason?
Mhm.
And frankly, a lot of people are so squeamish and nervous about it in the beginning that I'll even recommend not that you don't want to be transparent to everyone, be your authentic self, but you might need just a white lie to get through it. You might want to say, I've been having some health issues. I'm taking a quick break. I think it depends on the situation that you're going into. If you're going to an event where your five best drinking buddies from college are going to be there, fired up and ready to go, and you're not ready to come out yet as a sober person, you might just want to say something like that. I've been having some stomach issues. I'm working on my health right now.
Mhm.
My doctor wants me to take a little break from drinking.
Yeah.
Just have answers preloaded so that
Mhm.
it's something that people can really understand and move on from.
Yeah, have a plan and have backup.
For sure, 100%.
So why do you think there's a growing movement away from alcohol in our society today? There's this huge like sober curious movement.
Yeah, I think we're just waking up. I think the biggest thing is that we're waking up. The big analogy that I make to people is, if you and I were having this conversation inside a restaurant 50 years ago, that restaurant would be totally full of smoke, right? Everyone would be smoking cigarettes. Half the people in the restaurant, maybe more. And if I said to you at that time, Lauren, in 50 years, people are not going to smoke. You might see one person smoking on the street, or you'll see a cigarette here and there, but very, very, very few people are going to smoke. It's going to be a fringe thing. You might say to me, like, well, Scott, I think you're crazy. Everybody smokes. It's huge in our society. They're always going to smoke. How could smoking just go away? That doesn't make sense. But then here we are 50 years later, and we've woken up as a society, right? I think we're having that awakening now with alcohol. I think we're learning that it's very dangerous for us. It's very bad for our health. People like to say, and there's these buzzy, articles out there about one glass of wine a day or 3 beers a day or whatever the case is actually good for you. That's all nonsense. The truth of the matter is, alcohol in any shape or form could have really bad effects on your health long term. And I think we're waking up to all that as a result. And we're realizing, well, what's the real value in this? I get to have maybe more fun, or get a little buzzy, or drunk for 2 or 3 hours, but then my entire next day is ruined. And we're a society now that's learning to prioritize wellness. We're prioritizing fitness. You look at all these unhealthy things we've done, whether it's fast food, or whether it's smoking cigarettes, or all these things that we've done as people. We're waking up from that, and I think alcohol is having its moment now, where it's people are waking up, and I expect it to
Yeah.
happen at a very rapid pace.
It is happening, this whole wellness movement, right?
Yeah,
Like when I go to the nearest shopping center near me, it's like boot camp, Pilates, yoga, juice bar, salad place,
yeah,
med spa. It's all health and wellness. There's Lulu, Viore, Aloe. It's like taking over. And you're seeing all these different mocktails, alcohol-free wine, what have you. I think, as Scott said, what's important, at least like whenever I'm taking time away from drinking, is that I have a replacement. So when I go to my fridge, am I grabbing a sparkling water? Am I grabbing some alcohol-free wine? Am I making a mocktail? Like, what am I going to do instead when and if I have that craving?
yeah, 100%. I mean, you look at all those different industries; they're exploding. Every restaurant has a much bigger, mocktail or non-alcoholic beverage list now. There's so many more non-alcoholic beers. Tom Holland, the actor, just dropped his own non-alcoholic beer, and it's going to keep going and going. I don't expect it to slow down. I think where cigarettes took us, 30, 40, or 50 years as a society to quit and wake up from, I think alcohol is going to take us 10 or 15. I think 10 or 15 years from now, people are really, really, really pumping the brakes on it. And there might still be things like, breweries or wineries or cocktails, drinking experiences, but binge drinking, this let me go out and drink 10 or 15 drinks, is not going to be as much of a thing.
Okay, so if cigarettes were a thing 50 years ago and we're going through this now with alcohol where it's going to become less of a thing, what are people going to be doing in 50 years? Can you predict that?
Yeah, I don't know about 50, but I think in the next few decades, I think you're going to see psychedelics on the rise, as crazy as that may seem. I think these things that have been demonized, like mushrooms, there's a
Mhm.
lot more people doing mushrooms now. I still, to this day, own a few bars, and I can tell you, when I'm out at night, I'll hear people saying, "Yeah, I'm not going to drink tonight. I just had a few mushroom chocolates instead." And what they're going to do is, they're, because of the wellness craze, and the rise in wellness, they're going to find ways to get a buzz that are healthier, that aren't going to impact their health as much, that they still feel great from the next day. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily an advocate for mushrooms. People should do whatever they want, I think, but I've done it enough myself. I've seen enough friends do it, and you can have a good time. And I'm not talking about mushrooms to the point of tripping and losing your mind, but just a little bit to
Mm.
feel a little different, feel a little happier. And the next day you wake up and you feel like the same person you did when you woke up the day before. So I think that as people start, I think we're going to find more and more ways to call it whatever you want, get a buzz, sort of get into a different mind state without it having to be alcohol. Alcohol is insanely destructive. Obviously, as we know, marijuana and THC is on the rise nationwide. More places are legalizing it,
Mm.
and so I think there's going to be a lot of ways for people to enjoy themselves with substances that are just healthier and not as destructive as alcohol is.
Right. Alcohol is a depressant.
For sure, yeah, absolutely.
So many of us are social drinkers, but we don't identify as being an addict or being addicted to alcohol. But maybe we recognize that alcohol is holding us back. How do you approach maybe individuals who approach you with something like that?
Yeah, so that's another very interesting thing that we're seeing now in society, and we touched on that a little bit earlier in the call, is that there are more and more people quitting now who aren't necessarily even problem drinkers or alcoholics, but who are just waking up and realizing, I only drink 1 or 2 nights a week, and I only have 2 or 3 drinks on those nights. But what if I just cut even that little bit out? I wonder how that would change me or be better for me. I have a friend who was not a hardcore drinker, but he started to read books and learn more, and he was a social drinker. And finally, he realized, what am I? If I'm barely doing it as is, what am I doing it at all for? And what is really the return that I'm getting for the little bit of drinking that I am doing? And then now he's a guy that doesn't even drink at all, So
Mhm.
and he's happy with that. And so we're seeing more and more of that. It used to be like everyone's going to drink, the whole world's going to drink. But if I have a rock bottom moment, or I become a hardcore alcoholic, or I lose my job and get kicked out of my house by my significant other, I'm gonna change. But now it's like, I'm just a social drinker, but I don't know if I want to do that anymore. I think I can be social without alcohol, and people are starting to change in that. So I would just say, whatever's best for you. To this day, I don't tell anyone don't drink or people shouldn't drink. Everyone should make their own decisions about what they put into their body, right? But I think that there's a lot of people who are now doing some deep thinking and saying, I only drink once or twice a week anyway. What if I just cut it all the way out? Then I would save money, save my health, not have to worry about taking an Uber. There's a million benefits, and that's why it's so valuable to get sober in general. Is there's only a limited downside in that you're going to miss those 1 or 2 hours, a night or a weekend where you feel a little inebriated or feel a little looser, right? And then there's about 100, benefits as far as the money you're going to save. You're never going to do anything stupid. You're always going to be clear headed. You're not going to make a bad decision. You can drive your car out at night if you want to, all that kind of stuff. And so there's really, really, really a lot of benefits that once people give it up. I always tell people, like, I couldn't go back to drinking because I'm addicted to sobriety now. And once you get that control and you feel that clarity,
Yeah.
very hard at that point to then go back to
Mhm.
drinking at that
Mhm.
point.
I'm sure you feel limitless and unstoppable, like anything's possible because that's not holding you back anymore.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, I feel like I'm always going to make the most out of each day. I know that I'm not going to waste 4 hours drinking and then another 8 hours tomorrow being hungover and lose 12 hours in the next 2 days. I'm going to execute on every one of those hours and be able to use those hours to my advantage. And yeah, limitless is, I'd say, a good feeling for it.
So, since stopping drinking, you have started 25 businesses. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Congratulations.
No, thanks. It's been great.
I'd love to hear about some of the daily or weekly habits or routines that keep you grounded and aligned with your goals.
Sure. Yeah. So I think, when I started 12 years ago, the first thing we actually did was a restaurant. And then from there, we went on into, more restaurants and bars. And now when I say we, me and some of the teams I work with, we do barbershops, we do dog daycares, a lot of stuff that's in the retail sector. For me, I think it's a lot of the standards that you see now that are popular and buzzy in entrepreneurship. I do tend to go to bed very early and wake up very early on the weeknights. I'm in bed at 6:30 or 7 and falling asleep at 8:30 or 9, and then waking up at 5, not even because I'm setting an alarm, but just because I've gotten a great night's sleep and my body wakes me up, and then I'm kind of going for it. I think that fitness and healthy eating, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, are very important. You got to treat your mind and your body like an athlete and really make sure you're taking care of it. So all that stuff, and then definitely just a lot of education. Listening to pods, watching YouTube, reading books, trying to learn how I can be better and get ahead, all that kind of stuff.
What's your favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast, I don't know that I have just one. I tend to listen to different ones at different times. I don't know if I could say that there's just one that I list like the most. I tend to listen to, I think it's called the Genius Project a lot, has sort of forward thinkers and stuff like that. But I don't know if I have a specific favorite.
Mm-hmm. Do you meditate?
I've tried meditation here and there. What I've actually done more than meditation a lot recently is just go to a quiet place to just sit and think for maybe an hour or two without any inputs. So that maybe I'm not fully meditating, but I'm just really sitting with no phone, no computer, no other people, and just thinking. I've read a lot of Buddhist writers and sort of writers along those lines who say we don't, and it's true if you think about it, we always have inputs all day, every day these days. We don't ever have time to just sit and think. From the moment we wake up till we go to bed, we're on our phones or we're on a computer or we're watching a TV, and it's inputs, inputs, inputs. And if I can just spend, a few hours each week, sometimes I'll come here to my office and I'll leave, my phone and my computer at my condo, and I'll come over here with no book, nothing, and I'll just sit for maybe an hour or two, think about what's going on, let my thoughts sort of roam, and then head out from there. And it sounds kind of weird, in today's society where there's always something to be done. You can always put a Netflix on. You can always, listen to a podcast. You can always watch YouTube. You can watch a movie. You can find a bazillion inputs. So for someone to spend time going away from all the inputs and just sitting there and just thinking is a little bit different for people to consider these days, but it's been great for me.
Being present with yourself. It's important.
For sure. Absolutely.
So if you could go back and give one piece of advice to yourself on your very first day sober, what would it be?
My very first day sober, for a simple one, I think I would say just stop smoking cigarettes. I definitely kept smoking cigarettes, which are obviously terrible for you. Let me think, for a good 3.5 years after drinking. I think maybe what I would go back and say is start learning more about sobriety. Then I kind of just was winging it, doing it on my own. I didn't start reading books and learning about quitting drinking enough back then. And I think since I did, in the later years, if it's been almost 15 years now, in the past 4 or 5 years, I've really started to learn a lot about it and all that kind of stuff. I think that would probably be it.
And before we wrap up, talk to us about Locked Back In.
Sure. So, over the past 15 years, I've started to really help more and more people get sober. It started with a couple close friends, and then I kind of had people reach out to me who heard about it, and just from me talking about sobriety in my social media, it got to the point where I really have helped a lot of people, primarily men, but a couple women, get off alcohol and stay off alcohol. And then I started to learn more about online coaching, and I decided to turn it into sort of a new program that I run called Locked Back In. And that's really the premise that, you're sort of lost. You're lost in your challenges. You're lost in your drinking problem, and you want to get locked back in. And that's what I do now is I work with people one-on-one to help them, quit drinking forever. So we really do it all through Zoom. I have clients in, the U.S. I have clients in other countries, clients in different parts of the country. And we start off with a call where we just talk about everything. We talk about your problem, how it came to be. What do you think that's driving you to drink? What are your triggers? What are the situations that you're worried about? So what you and I talked about a few moments ago, what are those events you're going to be worried about? What are those life situations you're going to be worried about? Because what you'll learn is it's not just about stopping the drinking. A lot of people can stop the drinking, but it's about how you learn to live sober in the world. And so after that first call, we make a plan, and we either talk once every 2 weeks or we talk once a week on a Zoom, just like this. And we jump on and we talk about how did the past week go? Hopefully you didn't have any alcohol intake. And then I do make myself available to people if they need to talk, really any time of day. If they want to just talk for a few minutes, they can shoot me a text or we can jump on a call. But it's been fantastic. We have a bunch of clients in the program already. I always tell people the other businesses I've done have been great because you can come to one of my places and get a great workout or drop your dog off or get a haircut or come get some food and drink at one of our restaurants and bars. And that's awesome. But when you can help someone quit alcohol, it absolutely changes their life. It changes their life forever. And there's no feeling like that. And there's nothing more rewarding I can do than that. So if I can turn that into sort of a business enterprise too, where I can help people and build a company around that and really help people change their lives, it's just been a huge win. And we've seen tremendous results already, and we're just getting started. We just went live about a month and a half ago and already have some clients going. And it's just been fantastic.
Amazing. I'm big on how can I use what I've been through to help others? And that's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. They say you can learn something from everyone, and everyone has something that they're an expert at, that they really know how to do, that can provide tremendous value to people. And I think for me, for a long time, I thought it was small business because I've worked in small business my whole life, and I still do own small businesses. But then finally, I realized, that's sort of that's work. This is more of a life skill that I've developed, and developed well. It's been about 20. I should have kept count or stayed in touch with everyone, but it's been probably about 20, 25 people over the years, that I've helped. And now it's to the point where I'm like, if I can take this expertise and really help people and scale it up, it's just a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. And for our listeners, you don't have to go at it alone. Scott is here to help. I'm big on having coaches, mentors, therapists, whatever you need to help you get through this decision.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm happy to talk to people. My Instagram is just my name, Scott Parker, and you can shoot me a DM. And a lot of people I do Zooms with, they don't get started with locked back in, but that's okay. I think there's always something I can teach them or help them or point them in the right direction. If they don't feel that it's right for the two of us to work together, that's fine by me. I mean, those are sort of the best hours that I can spend in my life, is talking to someone about their problem and the different options that are out there for them. And the truth is, there's a ton of options. It might not be working with me. There might be something else that I think is better for them, or they think it's a better fit for them. And so it's just a great opportunity to help somebody.
Wonderful. Scott, is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
No, I think stay. I just say, I guess I said no and then started talking, right? But I would say just stay open minded. I'm not saying that people shouldn't drink, but take some time when you're sober to think about your relationship with alcohol and ask yourself, am I happy with this? And where do I see this going in the future? And if you're not happy with it, make a change. And if you're happy with it, keep right on going and do whatever you want to do. But take some time to really do some deep thinking on it. And don't just drink because everybody else drinks, or your friends drink, or your family drinks, or you have always drank for a bunch of years. Drink consciously and drink because you want to drink and you want to enjoy alcohol, and make sure you understand your relationship with it.
Mm-hmm. One of my mentors, Jim Cathcart, who has written 26 books on personal development, said this, and it is, how would the person I'd like to be do the things that I'm about to do?
Yeah, no, I agree. Start acting now like you already are the person you want to be in 5 or 10 years. Don't wait to be that person. Don't try to build yourself into that person over all those years. Start being that person now, and feel the change happen to yourself.
Amazing. Thank you, Scott. Is Instagram the best place to find you?
Yeah, Instagram's the best place. And then my business website is scottparkerbrands.com, brands.com, Scott Parker Brands. And then, my Instagram is just Scott Parker, and look forward to it.
Amazing. I'll link it all in the show notes. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate it.